Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure and honor to speak to Laura Malvoyante, a leader in the movement to explore the benefits of digital minimalism for our lives. Technology today lives in our pockets, our homes, our minds, and increasingly our time as it threatens to become the be all and end all of our lives. Laura has had a YouTube channel for over a year in which she explores the problems and solutions of these technologies for the benefit of her listeners and of herself, because she has a very personal reason for going on this journey of digital minimalism. Laura, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Laura, can you explain what digital minimalism is and what it is not? And what inspired you to go on this journey to live a digitally minimal life?
Yeah, no problem. Digital minimalism is not minimalism. And I want to underline that because a lot of people get misled by the word minimalism. So, digital minimalism is a lifestyle and a relationship with technology and finding purpose and intention when using that technology. So when you're using a smartphone, are you using it as a tool or are you using it as an entertainment device? And perhaps you could use a different device for entertainment. And making these conscious decisions and thought processes before using technology helps reduce, of course, the time of the device that you're using, but also the intention on using each device. I started digital minimalism in September of 2023. I was spending about 8 to 10 hours a day on my smartphone. I was doom scrolling, looking at articles, social media, and losing so much time in my day. And at that time, I was also working in social media marketing. So my job kind of had me on social media anyway. And I was losing so much time and I got fed up with it in the end. And I wanted to make some changes. I don't think it's quite a clear term to begin with. A lot of people in the community have a problem with the word minimalism. So when people see digital minimalism, they assume that it means using as little devices as possible, maybe using just one device for everything. Whereas digital minimalism was coined in the book Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, and it's explained as minimizing your relationship with technology, not so much doing away with technology. So when I explain to people what digital minimalism is my relationship with technology and not letting it rule my life. So each piece of technology that I use is a conscious decision and is improving my life in some way and not taking away from that life. So some people may use less devices, but I know for myself, I have dedicated devices for certain tasks. And if somebody outside is looking in, they might say you are a maximalist because you have more devices, perhaps, than the average person. But that's how I view my relationship with technology, and everyone's journey and everyone's relationship is quite different. There's a lot of trial and error with digital minimalism because I know for myself when I started digital minimalism in September of 2023, I knew that I wanted to reduce my time on my smartphone because I was addicted to doom scrolling and social media, and I was losing about 8 hours a day, but I couldn't really account for what that time was going to. So I really had to sit back and think of how I wanted to use my devices and what I actually needed them for. So this took a lot of different use cases for different smartphones or dumb phones, as people like to call them in the community. These are usually feature phones that have limited applications or even minimalist phones with no applications and you're just calling and texting primarily. So that was my first step in digital minimalism was finding the perfect phone. And I'm still on that journey.
Right, right.
About a
Well,
year
you
and a
love
half
you
later.
love tech, right?
Yeah, I have a passion for technology, so I take pleasure in trying different devices and different setups. And I'm also visually impaired, so some of those devices that may work for somebody else turns out doesn't work so well for me, so I have to keep on trying different devices.
Uh, When I think of the overuse of digital technologies, I think social media. I think social
Yeah.
media is the biggest nightmare. Was social media the biggest trigger in your search for a digital minimal ideal, or was it your visual problems, specifically ADOA, as you've described?
Yeah, so it kind of is a culmination of everything together. I started having extreme visual issues. I was born visually impaired, so that was nothing new, but my visual impairment with the diagnosis of ADOA kind of led to a culmination of something had to give. And when I started having a lot of eye strain and I couldn't necessarily see the screen, and my addiction was so strong that I forced myself through that pain to continue to doom scroll and spend time on social media. I really had to think, is this what I want to spend my remaining vision on? Is it worth it? Is it worth the pain? What am I getting back from it? And a lot of my issues were social media indeed, most notably Twitter or X. I had to use for work and I didn't like it at all. And I
Right.
also had
Yeah.
to use TikTok, and TikTok was something that was never targeted towards my age demographic. And it was something that was scary and also taking over my time without me realizing it. So these two apps, along with LinkedIn, surprisingly, which I also had to work on quite a lot, were affecting my mental health as well as my physical health. And that's when I decided to take a step back and reevaluate my relationship with technology.
You were born basically without any sight in one eye. Is that correct? And you
Yeah.
had pretty good sight in the other eye
Hmm.
until the last year. Or, well, actually, I think it's progressive,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
definitely
became a
progressive.
big issue about a year or two ago. And that's what focused your attention on
Yeah.
this confluence of the visual difficulties and social media and so on. Is that
Yeah,
right?
for sure. It's definitely. I think when I started having issues, especially at work, for not being able to see text on my screen, no matter how much I changed the colors or my phone, I noticed my eyes were really hurting. And when I went to see my eye doctor about it, indeed, they confirmed that I had lost about 50 to 70% of the acuity in my quote unquote good eye,
Mhm.
and was diagnosed, of course, with ADOA, but also legal blindness. So that was quite a shock for my life, losing the ability to drive, losing a lot of abilities to do day to day tasks, and of course, being able to do my job.
The digital minimalism journey seems to be an endless one. Uh,
Yeah, indeed.
there seems to be no danger that you're going to work yourself out of a job,
No,
with this
that's for
content.
sure.
It seems impossible to declare victory. Now, one area where you do claim a kind of victory is how you structure your day, because you created a video in which you showed how very intentionally and in a scheduled fashion you would use one device for one purpose, followed by maybe several hours with no devices,
Mm.
and then another device for another purpose. And it was almost as if this works. This is what I was aiming for. And, you say, this is how I roll from day to day, and it works. And so you can almost claim victory there. But in terms of finding the perfect digital device, the plenitude of videos where you consider different devices and rule each of them out as models of minimalism suggests that we are converts to the cause of possibly pursuing an impossible dream. Now, do you think we can ever reach the point where we declare victory, or is it necessarily a journey without end?
I equivalate digital minimalism as an addiction, for example, recovering from my smartphone addiction. And I think a lot of addicts are aligned on the fact that you're never fully cured, it's something that you'll always be managing. And I feel it's the same for me with technology. I'll always find a way to use it and waste my time if given the opportunity. But I always have to keep in the top of my mind, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? And reminding myself every day, sometimes multiple times a day, when I can do something, how I should do something, and kind of break the cycles of the bad habits. Like many smokers, a lot of it is out of habit or routine, whether it's going out and having a coffee. Most people will have a cigarette with a coffee. And that's the same with my smartphone. Whether you get up or you take public transport, you automatically may go on your phone, kind of a way to escape from social anxiety or the fear of being in your own thoughts. And I think a lot of that is a common human emotion for sure. And trying to break those cycles with other devices or other methods, such as writing or something to really occupy the brain, because the brain is always looking for that dopamine hit, whether it's from drugs or from entertainment, gambling, technology. There's so many ways to occupy the brain, and trying to teach your brain different ways of being entertained is a lifelong process.
I thought, just as you just said, that it was an addiction because if it's not an addiction, why don't people just take their smartphones, no matter how smart, and simply delete all the apps except for the two or three most important ones? And of course, delete all the social media apps. Presto, an iPhone becomes a dumb phone. Or is a dumb phone something else? And is what I call digital maximalism in the category of an addiction in your view or something else? But you've already answered the question of addiction. But I'm confused about what exactly is a dumb phone. How few apps on a device qualifies a phone to become a desirable dumb phone? And before you answer, uh, here is something I consider a dumb phone.
Yeah.
This is a 1940s phone. It's before my time, but I admired the aesthetics of it. It's about 10 pounds. Even in a hurricane, I think it would stay on the desk. I don't know how many grams that is. But what is a dumb phone exactly?
A dumb phone is a broad term, and it's interpreted many different ways by many different people. Like you said about a smartphone with limited applications, this could be considered a dumb phone, for example.
Hmm.
There are what is called feature phones. These are devices like Nokia's, which people are quite familiar with. They have limited applications. Some of them have different operating systems that allow you to access certain social media like Facebook or YouTube. So these are on the smarter end of the dumb phone spectrum. And then then you have devices which are called minimalist phones. And these are phones that are targeted towards extreme digital minimalist, I should say. They're on the far side of the spectrum. These include the light phones, the light phone 2, and what will be released soon, the light phone 3, as well as punked devices. And these phones primarily just have calling and texting and maybe a notes app or a calendar and an alarm clock. So it's very limiting, and it's just a communication tool.
Or the minimal phone, right?
The minimal phone is a trick. The
It's too
minimal
big
phone
now, huh?
is marketed as a device to use less of your screens, but the minimal phone is not a dumb phone. It has full access to the Google Play Store and any application your heart desires. The only thing that is limiting your usage, perhaps, is the e-ink display, which makes watching content such as dynamic content for videos or photos less interesting and entertaining. But you can access any social media, such as Reddit or Twitter or anything, and still doom scroll if you wish.
Okay. So I'm getting the vibe that what we're talking about is almost a health issue, because you don't want to take the risk. It's like when a doctor prescribes medicine. Well, this involves this risk, and we
Mm.
and you don't want to have that risk. And so a phone that is somewhat dumb, but not dumb enough to really save your health is something to stay away from, right?
For experience from myself, when I first started the digital minimalism journey, you have a fear of being left out or missing something. And so a lot of people go to these devices, feature phones that have certain applications to still feel connected, or they feel like they absolutely need these applications, such as music streaming apps or things they deem they can't live without. And what I found is that these feature phones can still be quite addictive, especially for someone who has addictive tendencies like myself. I could lose hours in an
Right,
application that was designed for weather, for example. That's
right,
not normal behavior.
right. Well, that makes perfect sense. when you keep coming back, or when a person keeps coming back to the idea of addiction, it makes perfect sense. You don't want to, take someone to the racetrack who has a gambling problem.
Exactly.
Well, the Sleek phone, I watched your video on that, and they have a whole host of apps that have been selected by some community, uh, a group whose opinions, I guess, are considered automatically appropriate for any individual who buys the phone. And I don't understand the logic of that, except that they are trying to help people live a digitally minimal life. Is that right?
Yeah, the Sleek phone is a special device because it is community based, but also the founders themselves are very involved in the process of developing the device. So the apps that have been selected or put onto their app store, you kind of have to demonstrate to the founders that these apps are not addictive and why they are necessary for your day-to-day life. So just because those apps are on the list doesn't mean that they've just added them because people asked for them. I know for myself as a content creator, I kind of had to explain why I needed certain apps to manage my YouTube account. I didn't need YouTube per se, but I needed YouTube Studio to manage my content and comments, and had to explain that this was not an addictive app for me because I needed it to do work tasks or to organize my day. And this is a conversation that everyone that's worked with Sleek has had to have with the founders to get these applications. So this device is really cultivated for
Oh,
productivity and communication.
so you're lobbying for other users to have
Yeah.
this feature. I mean, a user cannot contact the company, and the company can say, well, we're going to let you put that app on your device, but not anybody else's Sleek device. It's not that.
Yeah.
You're lobbying for
Yeah.
everybody.
I'm lobbying from everybody, and they've
Okay.
chosen people from different backgrounds and different professional experiences. And coming from somebody who is visually impaired as well, I think there's a lot of apps and certain things that people in the community need day to day that need to be addressed by certain companies as well.
Okay. So do you think that you might actually use that device as your dumb phone?
For me, it's the ideal device, but the only caveat is that they are using hardware that is too large for my preference. They're working on this as a company, whether to create their own devices in the future or be able to use the software on different devices. So you purchase the software and install it on your own device as you wish. So I think the company is evolving in a way that I'm interested in following and continuing to use. But as of today, using it on a Google Pixel 6, it's not very convenient for me.
Are you talking about the form factor when you say large?
Yeah, yeah, it's very large. It's one of the largest pixels.
Oh, that is very tall.
So this is
Yes.
a Pixel 6 and this is a Pixel 8. So there's a big size difference between these two.
Oh, yes. You can hardly even put that in your pocket, can you?
Yeah, it doesn't fit in a female pocket at least, maybe a
Oh,
male's pocket.
right. No, I thought it would be about this size. This is my iPhone, 12. It's not a very big
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a perfect size. I think they're working to be able to implement a newer Pixel devices, and I think that would be a great benefit if I could put it on my Pixel 8. It would be the perfect solution, I think.
So you're still searching.
Still
You're still
searching.
searching for that ideal. Okay,
It's
that's
like
good.
searching for the fountain of youth, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
that,
just a
that is
continuous
good.
search.
That is good. I was thinking, what if, say, in 2027, some manufacturer came out with the perfect dumb phone, and you might say, all that time I spent reviewing, I could have just waited until 2027 because I didn't like any of them anyway. So,
Yeah.
but,
And I
no,
think
I
knowing
don't think
me,
that.
I don't think it'll ever happen because I just love tech so much.
Yeah.
I'll always want to try the next thing. I know
Oh,
myself.
right. Well, I understand that. Now, you mentioned that social media can be positive. That surprised me.
Mm.
What are the potential positives of social media?
From my experience, social media has a positive impact for those of us who don't normally have a social life the same conventional way as some people have, especially being disabled and no longer being able to drive or to go about as I please. A lot of times I'm lonely or I need connection either with family through social media or people who have similar ideas and be able to exchange on those ideas with people. And I think social media really brings people together who live in isolated locations and may feel alone, and being able to have that human connection is a great benefit to the mental health.
Are you talking about direct messages in social media?
Direct messages, even for me, for YouTube, for example, communicating in the comments, for me, this is a great social outlet for me to communicate with my viewers. And I get great feedback and I feel a lot more
Oh,
benefits as if I'm in a room with people, for example, talking
right.
about digital minimalism.
Right. That I understand. It's like a almost I don't know if I would say classroom because you're putting yourself here and they're down here if you say classroom. But I get that, and to me that's not social media, but it is. I understand it is social media. So
Yeah.
okay, I definitely understand that. And yes, there's definitely a sense of community. I mean, it gives a person on the other side, the viewer, a real feeling of connection when you like something that they've posted, you as the creator.
Hmm.
They feel noticed, they
Yeah.
feel so, but that's, I don't know how that necessarily conquers loneliness for them. But I see how creating a YouTube channel for you and then having all these people, watching what you posted, that does do a lot for you. I can see that. Uh,
Yeah. And other examples would be, for example, Reddit, quite a popular forum for people who are in digital minimalism and dumb phone communities. There's lots of discussions and posts about certain devices and getting feedback on those devices or asking questions. And a lot of people who are on YouTube creating content are in those forums as well. So it's a very close-knit community, I feel like, but we exchange on different platforms.
oh yeah. Yeah, I've never gone on Reddit. I don't know what it's like. What is it? It's just a forum. How does it differ from, say, Facebook, which, people have Facebook pages and things like
I
that?
think Reddit is just more text-based and
Oh,
you can
okay.
follow subjects or interests that are important to you. So it's very focalized on what you want to follow.
Okay.
Whereas Facebook kind of feeds you what it wants you to follow. So there's a bit of a difference.
Right, right. Um, okay, let's see. That one of the questions I had is it possible that the creation of relationships on social media creates the illusion of genuine relationships rather than the reality of such relationships? Because, when you have people on Reddit or YouTube, they're all talking about the same thing. That's not really what we often consider a relationship to be about, which is more diverse things that people have in common, that they learn about each other, particularly if they're friends. Doesn't this set people up for disappointment? Or could it? I don't know.
Definitely. I think a big problem with content creators and their audiences is parasocial relationships. There's a lot of people who think that they may be unique in their relationship with that to that creator, but we talk to a lot of people and we
Right.
have a lot of interest with people. But also, it's up to the creator too to build those relationships if they want them to become friendships. I know a lot of creators who've built friendships with other creators or with people in their audience to really create a rich community. And that really depends on the creator and
Yeah.
the content that they're creating.
Right, right. But it's possible. That's what you're
It's
saying.
possible. It's definitely possible. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the important thing. But I mean, yeah, it's important if someone is lonely and they're trying to get rid of that loneliness via social media, um, if they are just logging on to a site, they are not in the driver's seat. It
Mm,
depends on the creator of the content, or I guess they can talk to other people posting online and maybe
yeah.
develop a connection that way. So digital technologies create loneliness even when we can choose and modify them. And you address that in some of your videos. Uh,
Hmm.
what about the loneliness caused by what I will call digital impositions that we can't control? Now, I know you can't solve every problem in the digital world,
Yeah.
but what I mean by a digital imposition that we can't control is when you call a company and you have to go through a half hour of recorded voices and maybe never get to speak to a real person. My blood pressure goes up at such times. Now, that may be trivial, but it's a consequence of technologies making things easier for corporations, but not for consumers or individuals who just want or prefer to speak to a real live person. Consider a shut-in who never gets to talk to anybody. Uh,
Hmm.
and it's something we can't control, which may be all the more depressing for people. At least with digital minimalism, you have the hope that you can find something to rescue you from this situation that's making you depressed. But obviously, your channel cannot fix all digital problems. So,
No,
have you ever thought about
unfortunately.
those digital impositions, as I call them?
Yeah, I've had a lot of that recently because since I do test a lot of technology, I use multiple phone carriers, for example. And when I have an issue with a certain cell phone line or something, I find that they direct you immediately to talking to an AI chatbot, which doesn't understand the questions you're asking. And then it will send you to a robot phone call and that doesn't understand the questions you are asking. And then, if you're lucky, they'll redirect you to a person or they'll just drop your
Yeah.
call in the end. So you never really get to have your question answered.
I mean,
And the
I've
only way,
experienced that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's very frustrating not to be able to talk to a person because some questions or some issues can only be understood by a human being. It's the limitations of technology. And a lot of companies I think are backtracking in some ways for customer service on this because they're seeing the frustration. People are leaving services. I
Oh,
know I've left services due to this, and I've left it as a comment of, why are you leaving? Why are you unhappy? I make sure to put it in there because the
right,
more
right.
companies know about this, the more that they can make those changes. And what I see as a scary thing to the future regarding, especially for AI and how it's being implemented in every phone that we use, even applications for entertainment, is that people are using it to replace people and replace those relationships. And that's scary because they are very addictive as well. And I demonstrated this in a couple live videos that I was worried about the future, especially for younger people using these applications, because it does fill a space of building relationships, especially as a teenager or a young adult, where you'd go out and meet people and talk to people and exchange ideas. You're exchanging with a computer who has been programmed by somebody else and trained by somebody else. So their thoughts might not be correct, of course, but they can also be dangerous or lead you to think things that you shouldn't be thinking. And that's where I get scared about technology as a tool, of course, but globally, loneliness is an issue that we're going to have to combat as a species. And it's going to be something that's not going away with the more technology we include into our lives. And we need to find ways to reconnect. I know for some people it's not possible to leave their homes, but maybe they can do more video calls or digital meetups or things like this, offline meetups. I mean, there's a lot of different communities coming together to realize that this is an issue for human contact. And I'm hoping it improves in the future, but I don't know.
Well, you're young in my view, but you probably don't consider yourself very young because you can think of the generation that's younger than you, and this is all that they're going to know. And so they may think, Oh, there's nothing wrong with artificial intelligence. I'll talk to a robot because they don't know anything else. And so that may counter the potential that corporations will go back to the way things were, which I hope they do.
Yeah, and I
But
think a really key visual interpretation of this is when you go to grocery stores and there's the self-checkout area compared to checking out with a real person. And you'll notice 9 times out of 10, people go to the self-checkout rather than going to the line to talk to the individual working in the store. And that's crazy. It seems that
yeah,
less human interaction is more desired. I don't know if it's since 2020 or if it's
yeah.
just something as people
I
just try to avoid each other more often.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you made the connection to the pandemic, you
Mm.
know. But that is true. Now, when we go to the grocery store, my wife always goes to a line and she says, "Well, I want those people to keep their jobs, you know?"
Yeah, exactly.
So,
A visually impaired person like myself, those tablets and those screens aren't adapted to use a lot of the time. I can't see the buttons, and there's not usually a person there to help you. I think by law, they're supposed to have a headphone jack where they audio speak to you, but that's not always the case. And so a lot of people who have a handicap or disability really rely on those lines with people to be able to do their shopping.
yeah, they don't have Walmart in France, do they?
No, they don't.
Well, they're a particularly, as you know, because you spend a lot of time in the
Yeah,
US,
yeah,
they're a particularly bad example of, just pushing people en masse through the
yeah.
self-checkouts.
It's expanded exponentially, the self-checkout in Walmart, the past 10 years or so since I've left the
But
US.
but
I
even
can't
in
believe
Europe,
when I go back.
even in Europe,
In Europe, we've had automatic check-ins longer than in France. They are evolving to have more and more, but by law, they have to have certain number of checkouts with people because of the disability laws.
now you're traveling on this journey alongside your viewers, and you speak of your slips and reversions back to digital overuse. You also, it's almost like digital users anonymous, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Because
exactly.
everyone is dealing with this addiction. Would you say that's a fair point?
Oh, very fair.
Yeah,
And if there was a place where I could meet other digital addicts, I would be more than welcome to discuss my struggles with them.
right. Because they might have ideas that would help you.
Exactly.
Now, are others drawn to your channel because they're already embarked on the same journey, or do you find that many of your viewers are only inspired to get on board as a result of your channel?
I think it's about 50-50. Digital minimalism is not something that's commonly searched, as I can see in my analytics, and you can see by my video view count. Most of my views are coming from devices in particular. So people find my channel via specific devices, either BlackBerry or any digital minimalist phones. And then they discover what my channel's about by watching my content and explaining I've been on this journey, and they wonder what the journey is. And then they kind of stumble into the journey of digital minimalism
Yeah.
sometimes themselves.
Well, there's probably a lot more addicts in denial than there are addicts in search of, a solution. That's
Yeah.
why I wondered about the people who evidently a lot of viewers became angry. I don't know. I didn't see the comments when you talked against Apple or something,
Oh, yeah.
or whoever posted and said, "Well, you're using digital technology a lot more than most people." So isn't that a hypocrisy?
Oh,
Were
yeah.
they
I get
angry?
that comment. I get that comment a lot, especially when I go after specific companies like Apple. In my most recent video I posted this week about devices that I disliked in 2024, I
Right.
pointed out Apple, of course, as my
Yeah.
main my main
Yeah.
focus.
Well, sure.
I think a lot of people don't realize is that I do love Apple. I love the devices. I think they're very beautiful. I don't love the company and the thought process of behind it of the payment schemes and the ecosystem and things like that, and the addictive tendency of these devices. But people
Right.
usually don't listen to the full video to understand that I actually do love the devices. And most people, yeah, will find my channel via these devices or to come argue with me over certain things or argue about digital minimalism being minimalism when it's not about minimalism, but they won't listen long enough to hear that.
Right. Now, are you inspired by other legally blind YouTubers who host channels on various subjects despite their visual disability?
Oh, I have a lot of blind influencers that I follow. The most popular, of course, is Molly Burke. She has RP, retinitis pigmentosa, if I'm saying that correctly.
Oh,
And there are a lot of RP blind YouTubers out there. I follow another blind YouTuber focused on tech and accessibility. His channel is called The Blind Life, and it's really interesting as well. He has Stargardt's disease. And I think the blind community is so rich and so various, and a lot of us have different disorders. And seeing that everyone's coming from different journeys as well, their blindness, and it doesn't hold them back is very inspirational. And one of the reasons I started my own YouTube channel.
so you get ideas from them on how to navigate the content creation path with your
Not so
disability?
much. I think a lot of them have people who edit and do the back end part of their work. Um, some of them are able to do their own editing. I'm still doing my own editing and content creation for now. And I think technology has given me the gift of being able to do a lot of things that probably weren't possible 10 years ago for blind people.
Mhm.
And I try not to let my disability hold me back for doing content that is very visually focused. It might be ironic. I like to prove people that you can do things no matter what your limitations are.
Right. Um, and you like to edit though, right?
I love
You,
editing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and you make these decisions about what B-rolls to
Yeah.
include.
I think when you find with content creators, you'll find there's different kinds of creators. There's people who really just want to share a story and things like that. And then there's people who really want to create and have
Right.
tangible content. And I know for myself, I've met a lot of other creators who can't wait to stop editing and push that out to somebody else because they feel that it blocks them from creating more content. Whereas I really enjoy the process of each part of it, of thinking of the idea, making the video, editing the video. Every part of it for me is really a pleasure, especially not being able to see and seeing limited, but seeing things that I want to see and that I've created is very fulfilling.
So do devices with diverse numbers of settings, does that put you off at all?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Especially if I can't modify the contrast of the device, I won't use the device because I can't focus or I can't even see the settings to modify, or it hurts too
Right.
bad to look at the screen. Yeah, really depends on the devices for me. If it's an e-ink device, I think I can tolerate more complex menus because of the e-ink display. I'm more able to focus on the screen. But that being said, I'm somebody who loves technology and pushing it to its limits and seeing how much I can modify it, customize it, and even if I'm having visual difficulties that day, I'm somebody who's going to hyper fixate on it until I finally reach my
Yeah.
objective.
Well, Laura, thank you for all that you've done for so many people in our world who need to hear what you say. Your channel presents your ideas with such kind and humanitarian nuances from the settings that you use, the sounds, the music, all of which may not be consciously noticed by your viewers, but which help them navigate their way through their challenges. Were those sorts of things intentional or just consequences of your own sensibilities?
I think when I create my content, I create something that I would want to watch. And so I've taken a lot of notes from other creators and other styles of content that I like watching. And some of it is my own. For example, I shoot a lot in the same location because the lighting is good in that room. And I'm able to see and kind of line up my background the best I can with my visual impairment to make it more attractive to watch. And a lot of people have asked me, for example, why don't you go out and shoot a vlog style video? And this would be great if I wasn't visually impaired and needing to use a white cane and holding a camera at the same time would be kind of counterproductive
Right.
and kind of put me in danger in a lot of situations. So I think in the future, I'll try to find more ways I could film outside or in more dynamic locations. But for now, my content seems to be straight to the point, simple shots, and some B rolls put in there, of course, of devices and things like this. Music is something that I struggle with personally, what kind of music to put in certain places. Music is very emotional, and I try to convey emotions at certain points in my videos through music, but it takes a lot of time to find that music and to put it in the right spots and the right levels, and it takes a lot of effort.
Well, I was actually talking about that lead in you've got with your name,
Ah, yeah,
and it's got very soft music.
yeah. I made that music actually. That's my own music.
Really?
Yeah,
Are you a
yeah.
musician too?
Not a musician, but I have a ability to make intros for YouTube videos. I did my own and I also did the one for
Oh,
my husband's YouTube channel.
oh, okay, okay. Well, it's very soothing.
Oh, thank you.
And this idea of knowing what to expect when you play one of your videos is a good thing
Yeah.
because people don't get distracted by things that they're not expecting. Like if
Mm.
you do, and you have shot videos outside where you're walking
Yeah,
around.
yeah. That was my first and last attempt for now.
Well, and some people love that. Some
Yeah,
people
of course.
commented
Yeah.
and they thought it's just why don't you do that more often? You know, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
My mother, for example, wants that every video. Go outside every video. Okay, but the weather's not great all the time, so it's not possible.
Right. Well, anyway, what I was saying was that there's a kind of positive force, a positive force in your style
Mm.
of speaking and presenting your videos, along with the empathy and the fact that you embrace the same problems that your audience has, you know, or you acknowledge the same problems that your audience has, namely this addiction. I don't think a lot of people would comment on that, but I noticed it, and I think it's a real strength of your videos.
Thank you.
So thank you again, Laura. It was lovely speaking to you. Best of luck to you in all the journeys of your life.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick, and it was a pleasure. Hope to talk soon.
Okay.